Hello, everybody. How are you doing? So, some of you have said hello already, where you're at. So, if you could do that, and also any questions you have along the way, would be great. We'll get started here in like 10 seconds or so. Make sure I'm dialed in here. Okay. So, let's talk about fear of failing and imposter syndrome today. Uh, like I said, post any questions along the way, and we'll do a Q&A thing kind of at the end. Okay. Uh, but my hair is looking a little weird today. So fear of failing and imposter syndrome. Let's start with most people know what fear is and failing, but may not have heard the term imposter syndrome before. So imposter syndrome is basically that feeling that we get of feeling inadequate. Uh, Kind of that fear that people are going to find out that that we're not who we say we are. That's imposter syndrome, and it's very common. So today we're going to talk about these very um, I did just start, Amanda. Uh, these are very common feelings in our that we have in our brain. Okay, so when you start something like a bookkeeping business, there are different barriers that we can hit along the way, and those can be outside of our brain, and there can be barriers that are inside of our brain. So today we're talking about these little hiccups or barriers that we can have that are inside of our brain. So the fear of failing and imposter syndrome. So the imposter syndrome being having that feeling of being inadequate, and that people are going to find out that we're a fraud. That is so normal. And one thing I do want you to remember throughout this conversation is uh, there's our brain has a fight or flight mechanism. I'm sure you've heard of it, and it also has an ego. So the combination of those two things are what make up what we're dealing with today is these mental barriers. Okay, so it's either the natural thing of fight or flight, uh, because it's an option to go into a bookkeeping business. It's not something that we're just dropped into. Fighting it doesn't come to us first. It's more of the flight. Um, we have the time to flight that situation. We have the opportunity to not even get into that situation. But it's that fight or flight mechanism in our brain. This is all my opinion from my experience. I'm not a doctor, but just you do learn a lot about people and about yourself when you have your own business, and kind of what makes you tick and what kind of hurdles you face every day, really. Um, so the important thing to note is that these things are normal. It's just how you get past them, or if you get past them. So your coping mechanisms are what's really important when you're dealing with these things. So so that's the first thing that I recommend, is that these feelings are normal. Our brain is designed to not get into situations that we're not comfortable with. That's our flight mechanism. So if we can avoid this fight, we're going to flight. And part of it is uh, we think that we're going to fail, and we don't want to fail. Our brain, it just naturally does not want to fail at something. So how we can cope with that feeling is just to realize, one, that it's normal, and another really big factor is that, a thing to keep in mind is that there is no failing. So, or you can think of it as in a range of success. That's how I look at it. So every step of the way is a range of success. You can get off a potential client call and say to yourself, I think I did pretty good on that one. Yeah, I'd give myself maybe an 85% on that one. So I would think of everything as a percentage of success, not you succeeded or failed, because there really is no 100% failure in any of this. Every single thing you do when you're building your business, growing your business, talking to potential clients, uh, all of that has a percentage of success. And rarely are you 100% successful either. There's always something to be learned from it. So you could do really, really well on something, say a client call goes really, really well, and you get the client. There's still, it might be still be a 99% success because there's still probably one little thing in there that you could learn from. So shift your brain from it's all or nothing or succeed or fail to what percentage of success are you having with this. And uh, and if and it may and it's normal to start off with a low percent, so your percentage of success will be low in the beginning, and that's normal and expected. How could you just jump into something brand new and be in the 90% success rate? That you can be a natural at a lot of things, but I don't think that you can just naturally know everything about starting your own bookkeeping business. So there's a percentage of success, think of that. And it's going to be lower in the beginning, but it'll just get better and better over time. So there's no real failing. And then another thing to that I like to look at is whenever I'm dealing with a situation where I feel my fear coming in, is what is the worst case scenario here? Um, because we can let our brains go down rabbit holes and worry about this and that. What are people going to think? And what if I start something and I fail at it? And first of all, don't worry about what other people think. And what is the worst case scenario? You spent some time on something. Again, it's not a failure. It's even if you didn't succeed at it, you didn't fail. You just had a certain level of success. And you're going to learn so much about yourself during that process. You're going to learn about how to start and grow a business. You might change types of businesses and say, I learned this from trying to start and grow a bookkeeping business. And then you fall into something that you like to do even more, and you can start a business doing that, and you'll know how to do a lot of that kind of startup stuff, and know the answers to a lot of questions that you didn't know before because you did this. So there's always a level of success in all of this. So what is the worst case scenario? You learn something. That you're going to learn something, period. And worst case scenario, if you buy somebody's program, buy one of my programs, it's just a couple $100. That is the worst case scenario, that you're out a couple $100. But you did gain something from that. You learned a lot from that. So keep that in mind, that the worst case scenario is not you're out of a job because you're trying to build a business. Your worst case scenario is not some these life threatening detrimental things to your well being types of things. The worst case scenario is just that it didn't take off like you wanted it to, and that's okay. You've learned a lot during that process, but with determination, you can push through all these things and still grow. You may start at a low success rate, and it takes you time to build up your success rate. You might start at 30% success rate. That's okay. That's understandable. I did that myself. Anybody that's doing anything successfully started off with a lower success rate. So remember that is that's that survival mechanism, and that's kicking in. It's very powerful. The other aspect of it, besides the survival mechanism, is your ego. Ego plays a role. After I started learning about ego and trying to pay attention to my own, I've realized that ego plays a role almost all day long, and in most things that we do. Our ego, trying to that it comes into play when you're trying, if you're worried about what other people think. Okay, if you're worried about what other people think of you, that's your ego getting in the way. So you have to. I recommend studying ego. It's such a powerful thing to learn and realize how big of a play it has. There's some beautiful saying, and I don't remember exactly how it goes, but it's like your mean, dirty little cousin that's always right there on top of you, making you do things that you don't want to do, say things that you don't want to say. I butchered that saying, but that is what it is. It's this part of your brain that a lot of times has control over your behavior. It controls what you say and what you don't say, where you go, where you don't go, and because we're always worried about what people think of us, and uh, it really really comes out. You'll see once you start to pay attention to your ego and study ego a little bit. Maybe when we get done with this Google ego and start learning about what ego is and how it really affects our daily life always. So we got to keep that in check, and being humble is the goal here. We want to just be humble. It's okay where we are in life. It's okay where you are in your progress as a bookkeeping, growing your bookkeeping business. All of that is okay. Your ego will tell you that it's not okay to be a beginner at something, but it is okay. It's okay to not be great at something. So if you can be humble, you can. The more humble you are, the better. It allows you to progress and just put all that stuff aside and just do what you're supposed to be doing. Um, so ego and the survival mechanism, huge. And even after 20 years in this industry, I still deal with all that. I still deal with imposter syndrome. I still deal with fear of failing. It's all there. Just like you think of success as a percentage of success. Well, ego and fear of failing is always there too. It's never quite gone. But over time, it's a bigger obstacle. It's a bigger obstacle in the beginning, than over time you can shrink it. But it's always still sitting there. So you have to pay attention to it, and you have to be diligent about fighting it. Okay, but the more aware you are of it, and you see yourself, wearing this instead of that, or walking over here instead of over there, and you put yourself in check and say, okay, why did I just do that? It's kind of self-realization. Why are you doing certain things? Why are you thinking certain things? Why are you saying certain things or not saying certain things? So very important to get in close relationship with your ego and that fear of failing that your brain naturally has. So what is the solution? How can we get around these kinds of things? So there's different things that you can do that I think are beneficial. One is just the understanding that we've been talking about it. Learn about your ego, learn about fight and flight, and that'll help you understand why your brain is acting a certain way. Instead of just feeling these emotions, which are normal, and letting them drive the bus, become aware of your feelings. The more aware of your feelings, the more you can understand why you are the way you are, and then you can help control and steer the bus, and then eventually drive the bus. So, but also by putting certain things in place, you can really help yourself. So if you're building your bookkeeping business, having really good professional branding helps, because it helps build your confidence. It's something that you had a part in. You created, you came up with the name. You worked with the designer to come up with this really nice logo that you're proud of. So your brand is very important in that process to building your confidence. So really good, I always say really good branding plus really good advertising equals, you're getting in front of clients. So, but also just building up, so the really good branding, a really good advertising that'll help build your confidence. And then gaining, if you don't know QuickBooks, gaining a base understanding of QuickBooks would be really helpful too, because and we are going to talk about education level and how much QuickBooks you should know before you should begin, and we have QuickBooks courses with my program. So gaining all of that base knowledge and having a sharp brand that you're really proud of, all of that helps your confidence. So it starts to drop that percentage of the fear. So the fear is the unknown. You're out of control. You don't have control of your situation. But doing these different things can make you feel more in control, more confident, and which will lower your fear. So those are some of the things. And another thing that I think is it's a psychological thing that you can do is there are bound to be things that you're really good at. Do those things. Continue to do well at those things, and be mindful of the fact that you are good at those things. You may be really good at being a mom or a dad or cooking or drawing, playing an instrument, all those kinds of things. Do well at those things, and when you're doing well at them, realize that you're doing well at them. Say, you know what, I'm good at this, and if I'm good at this, I can be good at that too. So you can kind of have a trickle over effect of your confidence and the fact that you realize, hey, you know what, I can do something. When I first started playing this instrument, I didn't know how to play, and now I can play really well. Or I used to not be able to cook, and now I can cook. So everything started somewhere. Realize that you got good at something because you were determined at it, and you pushed past any of the barriers that kept you from getting good at it, and you can do that with your bookkeeping business too. Very important. So those are the things that you can do that help you get past it. Realize that it's normal. Become more self-aware of how fear works and how your ego works. Try to be humble. Understand that there's that sliding scale of how well you did at something. It's never failure. It's always just how successful were you? What percentage of success were you? I've had calls that were 5% successful. I've had calls probably 1% successful. So in the beginning, it's just your success rate and how successful a certain situation is lower. Understandable. So keep that in mind. And then the tools that you can do to build your own confidence in yourself are really important. And then having a really nice starting the process of building your bookkeeping business right, which is really professional branding and advertising. And then when you are when you are talking to potential clients, you've done everything right along the way. You didn't cut corners and trying to do something, trying to skip steps, So we'll get into the next video I'm going to make, and probably 2 days from now, will be about the education level that you should have. And I'll talk about how you do not need to be a CPA. You don't need to have a college degree in accounting or anything like that to be a really good bookkeeper. So, and to have a really successful bookkeeping business. Okay. So I'll talk about what character traits you need to have, and your education level, and how much, if you should know QuickBooks before, and how much. Okay, so we'll do that next time. So all right, so now let's go into some of your questions. All right. So good morning, everybody. Again, I hope everybody's doing well. Yep. So, Peter, you're asking, how do you protect yourself legally if you mess up? So that's today we're talking about fear of failing and imposter syndrome. So I'll save that for a different. And I'm not a lawyer, but insurance, people like to get insurance, so that is an option. And knock on wood, in the 20 years that I've been doing this, I have not ever had a legal issue. Knock on wood. So I don't think it's probably not from what, and I don't know anybody. Like, I know a lot of other people that do this kind of stuff, and I just think it's very uncommon. But insurance is, your friend. So Yvonne, yeah, starting with your family and friends. That's excellent. That is an excellent way to learn without that fear of judgment so much. You can be more honest with your feelings about especially with your family, I would assume. So yeah, starting with your friends and family, that's an excellent way to get used to it, learning the trade without as much fear, and it'll help build your confidence. So very good point. Thank you for sharing that. So we'll talk, Shauna, or Shanna. What level of bookkeeping services is creating financial statements for your clients? That's just done in the software. That's just 2 clicks of the mouse. So that's the good thing about QuickBooks software is that it'll create them for you just with a couple clicks. So that, if anybody has questions about fears and imposter syndrome or situations that they've had, that'd be great. So that's a good question. Have I ever completed a service for a client that you thought was good, but the client did not like the service? Um, Probably. I'm trying to think of an example. Um, I'd say it's probably been more. I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but I would say there's a good chance. And, because you're starting off and you're not, uh, you think you don't know what you don't know. So you might have done something. I probably have done something, and at the time I thought I was doing well at it, and reality was it wasn't. I don't remember being called out on anything though, but I'm sure that my level of quality was much lower in the beginning than it is now. But that's, again, that's a fear, and that might be a barrier that's keeping you from getting started and doing something that, I don't worry about that, is what I would say. Because that would be one client. It's not life threatening. You will learn from it and you'll be better because of it. So look at everything as a learning experience. Yep, learn along the way. So learning Excel is how much important for bookkeeping or knowledge of bookkeeping is enough to. Yep, we'll go over all that, what you should know in the next video. Okay? In I think 2 days. So that today's Sunday, it'll be in 2 days. For those of you watching live. Yep. So does anybody have any questions? So I'm still running sales on things like the branding, because everybody's in quarantine now. It's a great time for people to be learning something, doing something, starting their bookkeeping business, growing it. So the branding is, I'll put the links up. The branding is still 50% off of logos and business card design and websites are all 50% off right now. So I'll put that up right now. And if you're liking my videos, please like them, share them, subscribe so you don't miss anything. And I'll throw some links up right now. If you have any questions while I'm doing that, please ask them. I'm here to help as much as I can. So there's the branding link if you want some branding for half off. Here's a link to my programs. If you have extra time now, is a good time to learn something new. It's a great profession to be in. Especially, this is a good example of why. And if you're not part of our Facebook group, follow this link here and request access, and I'll see the request and approve it. The Facebook group, our Bookkeeping Life community, is awesome for helping out with all kinds of questions and stuff. So I don't know if that last link worked. Check. It did. Okay. So let's see. Melanie. Okay. Melanie says, I look and sound very young, even though I'm adult. How do I overcome the fear of people not taking me seriously? just do it. Just keep doing it. Even if your success rate is so. Let's just look at worst case scenario. Let's say you have to talk to 10 potential clients in order to get one. Is it worth it? And I would say, yeah, because you get that you're going to learn so much through that experience that you just get better and better on the phone or email or in person, however you're talking to these people. That you get really dialed in on uh, how good you are at that. So, and then you get that one client. It's all a numbers game, anyways. So, I don't get every client that comes asking me questions. It just doesn't happen. So it's always just a numbers game. The more numbers, the more potential you're going to have, and more success you're going to have. So if you talk to 10 and you only get one, you still got one, and that's a really good thing, and you can build off that. If you talk to 100 and you get 10, that's 10. That's great, and that's the goal. Just it's all a numbers game. Keep that in mind. It's all a numbers game. So I would try to uh, be confident in who you are. Who you are is great. It's okay to look and sound young. That's a good thing. And when you're uh, you know 50, that you'll be really. I'm assuming you're younger than that. That'll be that'll be a really good thing. So just keep at it is what I would say, and try to ignore those feelings of that fear that you have. Peter asks a really good question. How do you handle questions you don't have the answer to? Tell the client you'll get back to them. Yes. So there's two ways. One, if I know it's really outside my wheelhouse, gone are the days where I try to answer everything. So there are certain things that I know that are just out of my reach, and I know exactly where to find the answer to, and I'll say that. I'll say, uh, you know, I can get you a really good answer. I'll get back to you with a really good answer on that. Or if I know it's outside my wheelhouse, or it's just an area that I don't have interest in, I'll let them know. I'll say, that's not an area that I cover. And then if you know somebody to refer them to, they always appreciate that. And over time, you will know other people in the industry who you can refer people to. So that's a really excellent question. Don't try to bluff and um, answer things that give. You don't want to give them the wrong answer. It's better to say, it's better to be honest and say, I don't know that area. I know somebody that does, or uh, I don't know the answer 100% off the top of my head. I can look into it and get back to you. That's if you want to do that, you know. But excellent question. Can a non-resident freelancer offer tax services to USA citizens? I would think so. I don't know of any rule that says you can't, because you don't have to be licensed to be a bookkeeper. So I would think anyone in the world could be a bookkeeper for anyone in the world. I haven't heard otherwise. Amanda asks a good question. What do you tell someone when they ask how many clients you have had? Um, I I guess that's a kind of a starting off question where they may ask, how many how because they're trying to figure out how experienced you are. Um, I would say it depends on who you're talking to and how they ask it. Say, how many clients have you had? Oh, well, you can say, well, I've had clients in a lot of different industries, if that's true. If you're just starting out, it's okay to say you're just starting out, because you're going to be targeting clients that are easy. And if it's a complicated, the more complicated the situation, I've found the more due diligence the people are going to have in finding somebody that can handle it. Um, but if you're targeting the right uh, industries, like service-based industries, easy clients, small clients, they most likely will not ask that. And then if they do, Again, it's a numbers game. You can be honest with them and say, I'm just this is my first year in business. I've had a passion for this, for a long time, and I finally started to build up my own practice, whatever your history is on it, and they'll take it or leave it. But again, it's a numbers game. So there's two numbers games going on there. One, the percentage of people that are actually going to ask that is X percent low, and then you're going to have a numbers game as far as of the people that do ask you that, which ones will go somewhere else or go with you. So again, I don't recommend bluffing, but it doesn't mean you have to volunteer information either. So unless they ask, I wouldn't say. If they do ask, just be honest. It's my recommendation, and things will work out. If you're putting in the work, the determination, the effort to make this happen, it will happen. And I've always looked at it like each client is either made to be for me or it's not. I'm gonna do my best to get it if it works for me. If it doesn't work out, it's a numbers game. On to the next one. I'll be waiting for the next one and looking for the next one. Hope that helps. Naz asks, what's your client conversion rate? I don't know. I don't keep track of that. And it's not if you're in the business long term, it's really hard to say that, because I've just 2 days ago, I had somebody contact me that I had talked to 2 or 3 years prior to that. They had just started at that time back then. They had just started up their business, and they were thinking about getting a bookkeeper. And then 3 years later, boom, he's contacted me, and just the other day wanted me to clean up his books. So it's hard to say. But what I can say is it's much higher now than it was when I was just starting out. But that's a great question, is. So, Nita, what to say in the first email to a client? It depends. Are you replying to the client, or is it a cold email to a potential client? And it depends on what they're asking, what their situation is, what they say. I am going to do a session on how to talk to clients. So I will address speaking to them on the phone, email, and in person. In person and on the phone are relatively the same. But I will address that. So stay tuned to a future video on that. So Dania, I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names. I have some knowledge of bookkeeping and tax. How do I overcome the feeling that I may not be good enough? So I've been addressing that in this video. So if you just tuned in, replay from the beginning, because I talk about what's going on in your brain to cause that, and then solutions for that. So Jerry asks, can advanced age be an issue with getting started in this business? I know the politically correct answer, but is there a more real concern about starting after 50? Okay. That's a good question, and I'm not going to give you a politically correct answer. It depends on if you're savvy with computers, if you're somebody the other day said something about a fax, and it was somebody that's trying to grow a bookkeeping business, and I thought, I haven't even heard that word for many years. And so you need to, it depends on how up to date you are on where everybody else is in the world. If you have an old sluggish computer, and you're not up to what tools are being used now to be efficient, and I hope 50 isn't the turning point, because I'm 48, almost 49 myself. So I hope it doesn't go downhill at 50. But So it just depends, and everybody's mental processors different. So because you do have to be able to process information and learning something new, I do believe that everybody's different. I know young people that can process information, and then there's those that can't, and there's older people that are super sharp, and then there's those that are not. So it depends on your ticker and how up to date you are on technology, and your willingness to learn, your energy, your drive, determination. That would be my answer, Jerry. I hope that helps. Yeah. So Yvonne, is it normal to not feel? I think that's meant to be guilty when requesting pay for bookkeeping service from a church. Yeah. If you're providing a service and it's your line of work, you can charge. Don't feel bad about that. If that church was needed a new window replaced, or new carpeting, or had to buy something for the church, they expect to pay. So yeah, I wouldn't. You can always be nice and do whatever you want, but I wouldn't feel guilty about paying. Yeah, Naz brings up a good point, Jerry, about age. So, uh, but again, everything is different. It's a numbers game. Everything's a numbers game because there's all kinds of different people out there. There's all kinds of different clients out there, and there's no shortage of clients. Trust me. So it's really just but Naz says, I think older age makes client feel more confident than a younger age. There is some of that, but then there's also a good amount of numbers of people that feel more comfortable talking to younger people if they're younger than an older person. So there's no like one way or the other. It's really a numbers game, and there's different variables. Yeah, that's good. That's good, Jerry. And it all keeps our mind. This type of work keeps our mind um, busy too. So I think it's really good to these types of professions. One, we can do this until we don't want to do it anymore, until we basically hit dementia. So when we start moving around numbers that aren't there, that's when it's time to hang it up. But God willing, that's when we're 80 plus. So that's the good thing about this working for yourself in a non physical industry. We're using our minds. So as long as our minds are working, we can do this until we're ready to go somewhere else. So that's the beauty of this industry, is that we're not going to lose our job at a certain age and need to retire at a certain age. You can dial this business to whatever level you want, and you can dial it up when you're younger, dial it down when you want to retire, and still do it and make some money on the side. As long as the brain's working, you can do it. Your Yvonne, your G's are Q's again. Unless there's something wrong with me. I'm looking at another G that looks different than your G. Okay. So, any other questions? I hope this helps people. It's a big piece of it. The mind is a big piece of this whole thing. Having determination and drive, all of that hinders on, and it's all part of the variable of your success, and also fear and the imposter syndrome and your ego and how humble you are. All of those things play a role. So hopefully this helps you understand yourself a little bit better. It's really helped me understand myself self better. There's the G. Thanks, Yvonne. And So, anyways, learn about how your brain works. Look up ego when we get off. Learn about your ego, and you'll start to see it following you around like a shadow all day long, um, because it does. So, but if you get a handle and become friends with it, you can sweet talk it into not controlling your life so much. All right. So, hope this helps. I hope everybody has a great day. Learn something that you didn't know yesterday. Learn something today, and I'm gonna try to do the same. Thank you for your time, and like I said, like this and share it if that helps me understand when I did well, and it strokes my ego. All right, everybody have a great day, and I'll talk to you in a couple days. We'll go over education next. So this is a series, and I'm doing it in trying to do it in a systematic way to help you get to to kind of cover all the pieces along the way, but in a organized fashion, hopefully. All right, so I'll see you in a couple days. All right, have a good one. Take care.